The green fog rolled through the trenches, decaying the flora and corroding the metal in its path. The Russians that had defended Auschwitz fortress for months, repelling several German attacks, saw a sight every soldier dreaded: this green cloud of death creeping their way. This fortress, a crucial choke point in the marshlands of modern-day Poland, was vital for the German war machine, as it provided a crossable path across the river, as well as a rail line necessary for the German advancement further east. Despite superior numbers and artillery, taking this fort was becoming a major issue. With conventional warfare's lack of success, the Germans would unleash one of the First World War's most devastating weapons: poison gas. Knowing the Russians lacked modern equipment, namely gas masks, the Germans chose a lethal mixture of chlorine gas for their next assault. With favorable wind on August 6, 1915, the attack was underway. Without gas masks, death would be a certainty, and it would be excruciating. Some soldiers attempted to make a makeshift mask of cloth soaked in water or even urine, although this would have done little to stop the devastating effects of the gas. Chlorine gas essentially turns the moisture of the body into hydrochloric acid. The eyes, mouth, throat, and lungs can be destroyed, eaten away by the acid. Skin becomes blistered with chemical burns as tissue melts and flesh peels away. The entire Russian garrison would have watched each other asphyxiate as they succumbed to a brutal death, poisoned by an enemy unwilling to face them directly. When the gas had cleared enough, the Germans advanced slowly on the trenches, careful to avoid barbed wire, mines, and pockets of lingering chlorine gas. The force of over 7,000 strong knew none could survive as they observed the disfigured corpses that now littered the trenches, scattered in a last act of panic. It was an eerie scene, quiet and surreal. After a while of marching, the occasional corpse would seemingly wake up to fire in vain on the Germans before being put out of his misery. Still, it seemed the once formidable Russian threat was annihilated. However, just as a green cloud of death had quickly engulfed the Russians, a horrific sight soon appeared to the Germans. Suddenly, the dead were reanimated and charging at the German lines. With bloodshot eyes, dissolved skin, and gory mouths coughing up bits of their own lungs, it seemed as if zombies were fighting the counterattack. Around 100 of the surviving Russians, of a force once over 700 strong, fought with such intensity that despite being outnumbered more than 70 to 1, it seemed as if they had the advantage. Led by Second Lieutenant Vladimir Kotlinski, who due to the circumstances was the senior-most officer at just 21 years old, the Russians, resurrected by hatred and a need for revenge, charged at the frightened enemy with bayonets and rifles. The decomposed appearance of the Russians and the sheer ferocity of the attack completely took the Germans aback. They fled so quickly, they ran into barbed wire and mines, while the Russians began to man artillery to further push them back. The Germans were routed, and the Russians, despite everything, won the day. While leading the charge, Kotlinski was mortally wounded in the attack, dying later that evening. The Russians would hold the fortress for a couple more weeks before abandoning it as part of a larger war plan. The battle soon became known to the world as the Attack of the Dead Men, a story of men who had watched their brothers die around them, relentlessly fight back with their bloody, wheezing final breaths.